You're listening to We Act Radio, WPWC 1480 AM. Visit us online at weactradio.com.
Hi, welcome to We Act Radio, a special report on the GOP war on women. This is Melissa Byrne, a senior advisor with We Act Radio. We are excited to be joined here with Jody Jacobson, the executive director of RH Reality Check. Hey, Jody. I can't hear. So.
Hey, Melissa.
Hey, Jody.
Hey.
Can you tell us a bit about RH Reality Check?
Yes, I can. RH Reality Check is a daily online publication addressing reproductive and social justice issues. We focus on evidence-based news, analysis, commentary, and investigative research.
Fantastic. So we're actually gonna jump into this today. We have State Senator Nina Turner on the line from Ohio, who's going to join us for answer a few questions and talk about what's happening on the attack on women in Ohio.
That is fantastic. I am honored. Senator Turner, are you on the line?
I am. Good morning, Jody and Melissa.
Good morning. You'll have to forgive me because this is my first time hosting a radio show, and I actually didn't know I was hosting till I got here. But I want to welcome you because you are truly one of the people I most admire in this country, and though we've never met, I'm really inspired by you. I want to ask you a few questions to help listeners understand what's going on in Ohio right now. We've heard a lot about Texas this week. Can you give us a sense of what the GOP attacks on women look like this week in Ohio?
Yes, Jody, and thank you for your website, too. I like how you talked about fact-based. You know, the Republicans could do a lot to deal with the facts. It is really shameful that we have some members of the legislature practicing medicine without a license, and it's really coming down hard on women. So the budget bill, within that bill, they put in a lot of provisions that are really bad. It's loaded with a lot of anti-choice and limited health care options for women. For example, could close down 4 of Ohio's 12 abortion clinics, impose mandatory ultrasounds on women seeking abortions, and defund Planned Parenthood. It really makes it harder for women to get a medical emergency exemption to the state's 24-hour waiting period for an abortion if she chooses to have one. So they really, really are putting women's lives at risk. So that's just the budget bill, and why things like this would be tucked away in a budget bill doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but that's what they did in the dark of night because they were hoping that nobody was watching, but surprise, surprise, surprise. And Jody and Melissa, I will tell you that hundreds of women and men showed up at the State House yesterday. NARAL was there, Planned Parenthood was there. People traveled from all over the state to stand up for women, and they delivered 17,000 letters to the governor yesterday.
That's fantastic. What are the implications of this bill for real women in the state, for women's lives, their health? What are some of the conditions that would result if these amendments to the budget bill were actually passed?
Well, hundreds of thousands of women will not have access to high-quality health care, and particularly in the rural parts of our state where they don't have as many options as women may have and their families may have in more urban areas of the state. So that's very real consequences. And we're talking about breast, mammograms and pap smears and all of the things that places like a Planned Parenthood would provide for women on the preventative side of the scale. Also for women, if a woman would need or chooses to have an abortion, her life could be absolutely in jeopardy. So they talk about caring for life, but that seems to stop when it comes to the woman. This stuff is real. We are not making it up. And then there's another bill that you may be familiar with that is even more extreme than that, and that is House Bill 200, which would make it a first-degree felony for doctors and a fine up to $1 million. They want doctors to give medically inaccurate information to women, for example, that getting an abortion will increase your risk of cancer, and just all kinds of things that do not make a whole lot of sense. This is serious, and this is about medical care, and that's what I want all folks, whether they're pro-choice or pro-life, this is about the legislature injecting injecting itself between a woman and her doctor, and it is wrong, and it could cause the life of women.
Can you tell me, Senator Turner, can you think of any other instance in which legislators are actually forcing doctors to lie to patients?
No other medical procedures. I can't think of one. And to that point, any other profession that you could be threatened with a first-degree felony and $1 million fine for doing your job.
Unless you lie to a patient.
Unless you lie. And we had doctors there yesterday that talked about, how they rejected these measures and that it undermines their medical knowledge and also the relationship that they have with their patient. There's a confidentiality between doctor and patient. There's a trust there between the doctor and patient, and this undermines all of that. This is real, and it should be unacceptable to anybody that believes that people should have the right to control their own bodies. It doesn't get much personal than that.
Absolutely. Can you also speak a little bit to the efforts to diminish access to contraception, which would actually reduce the number of unintended pregnancies? My understanding from our reading of the different efforts in states across the country is that efforts to diminish access to safe abortion care come along with efforts to reduce access to contraception.
Oh, absolutely. And there are about 700 measures that have been introduced in state houses across this country in just the last few months, as if they're not real work to do. And you're absolutely right. People who call themselves pro-life, you would think that they would support efforts like Planned Parenthood and other family planning clinics to educate people, to give them what they need to plan a pregnancy if they so choose. But they want to stop not only abortion, which is the constitutional right that women have in the United States of America, but they also want to stop access to contraception. And it doesn't make sense to me. This is real. And there are going to be a lot of unintended pregnancies across this country, and they're really going to put a lot of stress on families. This is unfair, and it's immoral, in my opinion.
So what are you seeing in terms of the response to this effort by the legislature to hide these things in the budget? What are you seeing among the people of Ohio?
Oh, women have come out. I mean, there's a great social media effort. People have come out to let their voices be heard. Letters to the governor. There's a tweeting campaign to the governor at John Kasich, because now we don't have the power of the filibuster in the state of Ohio, unfortunately. So the ball is clearly in the governor's court. He can line item veto those bad provisions that are in the budget bill that do not belong, and that is really what we are calling on him to do. So that is where we go from here, is to keep the pressure on the governor, to give him, to make him think about this, and to ask him to use his power to line item veto these things so that women will have opportunities and choices. He is supporting Medicaid expansion. He is on the right side of that, and I am hoping that he will master the courage that it takes to go against his party. It's all GOP pushing this, and line item veto those measures that are in the budget. They do not belong there. They don't lift people in any way. They have no value to the citizens of this state other than to make it harder for women to get the health care, the high-quality health care that they need and they deserve.
Got it. So one last question. People around the country are already emailing us at RH Reality Check to ask us what they can do to help in Ohio and elsewhere. What would you be asking people around the country to do to help support the efforts in Ohio?
To please increase our social media push, to send a Twitter to the governor, to email him, to call him. The ball is in his court, and not in an accusatory way. The legislature did this, but the ball is in the governor's court, and he can take this out. And so we want to encourage him to take these measures out. They need to call the governor.
And what is his Twitter handle? Do you know that?
Yes, his Twitter handle is at John Kasich.
Kasich at JOHNKASICH. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. And is there a particular hashtag?
JOHN, right? Kasich.
Right.
Yes.
And in terms of the hashtag, is there a specific hashtag people should be using?
You know, I haven't seen a hashtag, but hashtag line item veto would be a good one. And also for them to join my efforts at Nina Turner, NINATURNER, to keep that push, because I started that campaign last night, and that's what we need them to do, to call the governor's office as well in Columbus. They can look that up on Google.
Right.
I don't have the number right in front of me, but just to call, write, send an email. There is still time. The governor has until June the 30th, which is this Sunday, to sign that bill. He can do what it takes to spare women this and make sure that they have the medical care that they need.
Thank you, Senator Turner, for your efforts on behalf of women's health and rights, and for those others in Ohio who are doing this work. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Jody, so much.
Melissa?
We are excited to have Taneen Allison on the line. She is the communications director for the Texas Democratic Party. We only have her for a few minutes because of the delay on our side, so we want to hear from her about how all of the magic happened in Texas. I think everybody is just overwhelmed and engaged and inspired by the amazing work that's happening in Texas. So, hi, Taneen. What's going on in Texas? And Jody, if you have any questions.
Hey, Taneen.
Hey, morning.
We'd love to hear from you about what's going on in Texas. If you could give us a sense of how things came about last week, what did it take to get to where you were, and then what are we planning going forward, given the new special session?
Yeah, of course. There's so much to tell. I feel like once we all can catch our breath, it's going to be such an amazing story when we tell the full kind of history of it and how it happened, because it's just astounding. But as most of you all have seen, Texas has done an incredible thing this week, and I think it was an organized strategy, but it really ended up being that the people of Texas wanted to take action, and they stepped it up to levels that nobody was expecting, and they kept stepping it up every day. And so it was a last-minute, attempt to intervene in the special session, which is almost impossible to stop the way it's structured in government out here. We had the series of actions that accumulated in Tuesday night during Senator Davis's filibuster, and then afterwards, the people took it over and shut it down past midnight. And of course, as you've probably seen in the news, Governor Perry called a second special session the next day, which starts on Monday. But the people of Texas are nowhere near backing down. And one of the reasons I can't be on too long is I'm about to go to a meeting where we're planning next steps. There's going to be a large rally on Monday at the Capitol, which is the first day of special, and then we're going to be monitoring it to see when the bill will be heard, if it's going to be heard with public testimony as an option, and what the voting schedule is going to be, so that we can continue to motivate and rally people around this, so that the government doesn't do it behind the backs of Texans.
Taneen, because of our coverage, I think we are getting emails from people. In fact, just before the radio interview started, I got an email from a woman who wants to know where she should go to come help out. And is there a website or something that has a central sort of, information flow for where people can go so that they can find out how they can come from other parts of Texas to support you?
Yeah, we're in the process of creating that, and we should have that finalized in a few hours, which isn't as useful as if I could tell you right now. But I will send it along if RH Reality Check, and if the show has a website, to post it there.
Absolutely.
Right now, really, the Texas Democratic Party has been constantly covering this, both on our Facebook page and on Twitter, and that is really where the centralized information, where we make sure that it all is collected. And on the Texas Democratic Party's Facebook and Twitter, we're going to announce where this kind of single-based page will be. We're still, one of the amazing things about this effort is that all these groups are working together and collaborating in a form I've never seen anywhere on any action. And we've all come together and realized we need to have one shared landing page where we can show that we're in agreement about what the message is and what the next steps are. And so that's what we're working on launching in just a few hours.
Okay, great. Can you just quickly, before we leave, give us the web page name so that people can get to it for the Texas Democratic Party?
It's the Texas Democratic Party. It's txdemocrats.org. But
Great.
It's really, we're in the middle of, unfortunately, timing-wise, of rebuilding our website. So it's really our Facebook and Twitter, which
Okay.
Twitter is Tax Dem Party.
So Texas Dem Party on Twitter and on Facebook, people should go there to find out information.
Yeah, we're constantly updating.
Great. Tanine, thank you so much. And believe me, there are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people across this country who are with you in this fight, millions of people. So I hope that gives you guys some additional energy for what I know is a really rough time.
Thank you. I just want to say we're overwhelmed by how much people outside of Texas are watching this and standing with us, and it means a lot. So thank you all for your support and for reaching out and sending pizzas and remaining engaged with us.
Thank you. Next guest.
Hi, that was fantastic. Thank you, Tanine, and thank you for all of your work. And I'm very happy that the whole country is standing with you as you all are standing up for all the women in Texas. Up next, we have Laura Davila, who is a web developer for the Progressive Campaign Committee, PCCC, and also lives in Texas. And she's going to tell us her story of being engaged the last week, giving testimony, and being there during the vote. So hi, Laura. And
hey, Laura.
What are you doing?
How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Thank you so much for, I know we got you early. Thank you so much for all the efforts you've put in over the past however much time you've been working on this. Give us a sense of what your role has been and what it continues to be in this effort and what you see as being the next steps.
Well, thank you for having me. And I want to say that I wouldn't really be getting involved with the cause if I had no idea it was happening. But I have some friends who were really passionate about the issue, and I'm passionate about the issue too, but I don't always pay attention to the legislature. But now I'm going to be paying way closer attention. So a friend of mine got some of us all together to go testify on Thursday, and that was a really insane experience because I don't think anyone was expecting the turnout that we got. If you haven't already heard, it was almost 700 people who registered to speak.
Right.
Definitely not everyone got to talk because the chairman cut off
debate
the testimonies when he thought they were getting repetitive. But I got to testify, and I was really happy to because I personally have a CX debate background in high school that I haven't used in years. So I was able to kind of take out those speaking skills, and I think I got the committee's attention at least and helped the cause. But yeah, I'm just one of so many other women and men who have been getting involved just in droves out of nowhere the past week or so.
Right. I just want to pick up on one thing you just said though before, which is that the committee chairman called the testimony he was hearing repetitive, quote unquote repetitive. And so let's remind ourselves that what was repetitive to him were the actual stories of real women and men who have experienced health crises that required them to rely on either safe abortion care or other forms of care that are going to be basically outlawed by this law if it passes.
Exactly, which really upset everybody because he went on to say something like, "Oh, well, can we find out who has the more compelling stories because this is all getting very repetitive, blah blah blah." And of course, there's no way to organize and find out what everybody's story is, because everybody's story is unique, and you never know whose story is going to be more compelling than the others. And that totally, disregards the point, though, also that this is a democratic process, and we found the place where we are actually allowed to speak as the public, and he was shutting that down.
Right. And the reality is that the repetition comes from the fact that at least a third of all women, 1 in 3 women, at least 1 in 3 women in the United States has an abortion during her lifetime, and that most of those women who do have abortions are already mothers. So hearing the real stories of real women who have gone through similar circumstances is to him repetitive, whereas he otherwise says he's speaking on behalf of the people of Texas. It seems a little bit odd to me, but clearly you were there firsthand, so it's also a bit demeaning from afar anyway.
Oh, it's incredibly, and that was exactly my thought when he was saying, "Oh, it's repetitive." A lot of us were like, of course it's repetitive because it's something that is a social issue that is affecting a lot of people.
Right.
And that he expected it to be otherwise.
Right. So by virtue of the fact that many, many, many women go through this experience, to him it's repetitive. Very interesting. What are you looking forward to for the next week and the special session?
Well, I know that earlier yesterday, there was a lot of talk about everybody call Governor Perry, tell him you don't want this special session, and that was kind of spreading like wildfire, which is cool. People were posting about it on Twitter, on Facebook, and that's really been a key way to organize everybody. But another thing that I had heard earlier yesterday is that, well, we're not going to get involved until we find out when the actual hearings are going to be or when they're actually going to talk about this bill. But I also found out early this morning that people are already scheduling to rally on the 1st on Monday. Just, I guess, to remind the legislature that we haven't forgotten yet, and we're not going to forget about the issue. Since some people were confused and thought we were going to go on Monday, but now it's actually going to be an organized effort, and people are going to meet up and, I guess, march around the Capitol.
Right. It's ironic. We're coming up on July 4th, Independence Day, and what Governor Perry and many other governors and legislatures throughout the country are seeking to do is to strip women of their fundamental rights. This close to Independence Day, even makes it a little bit more ironic.
It really is. It really is. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of my friends who helped us organize a lot, me and my smaller group of friends getting organized with the bigger organizations, she was talking about how I won't be surprised if they try to pull something where they expect everyone to be not paying attention on the 4th of July and they still convene and try to pass something or try to do something.
Right.
While no one's
because
looking.
it seems to be that a common strategy here is to do things in the dark of night, because if you can't pass them in the light of day, you need to pass them in the dark of night or behind closed doors or in small rooms where people can't fit for protesting. Seems antithetical to democratic process.
Absolutely. And it was really upsetting because, as I said, I don't typically get involved with the legislature myself until this point, and I'm not going to stop. But when I was in the gallery, like especially on Sunday when they were doing the House debate on the bill, and I was just baffled at how much of a joke the democratic process was happening in front of me, because they spent hours just having Democratic senators or representatives, trying to propose amendments to the bill that would have been ways to make the bill bipartisan. At least, I know we're not going to win the 20 weeks argument in the right to life eyes people, but we could at least compromise on the fact that these clinics are going to shut down and limit access to so many people. And even coming from the representatives who are from the areas that are going to most strongly be affected by this bill, there is just no like attempts at compromise from the right. And it ended up being like hours of Democratic representatives talking at each other about possible amendments and why the bill is bad, with no refutation from the right, and just continuing like motions to table all these ideas that would have helped.
So, Laura, you said that you were someone who previously wasn't that engaged on a day-to-day basis in these issues. Do you see others like yourself becoming increasingly engaged who might have fit that same description, weren't professionally working in this area, weren't necessarily engaged day-to-day? What do you see around you among other friends and colleagues and people that you know?
Well, I'm really excited about that part of it. If anything, the one good thing that's really come out of this horrible bill is the fact that it's leading people who are otherwise disengaged, like myself, to get involved and, find out what's happening and not just let these things happen like without a fight.
Right.
And I know a lot of people have like come to me personally or talked to me personally about how like, oh, your Facebook updates, they've really kept me informed on what's happening, and if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be here. And I can say the same thing about my friends, and I know other people are just spreading the word like wildfire, and it's been really great because people are finding out what's happening, and maybe it seems like they don't care because they don't act, but they might just not be acting because they don't know.
So how important do you think social media has been to this whole effort?
Like I said earlier, it's been key. I would not have found out about it if it weren't for a friend who I know in person, but she made a really informative Tumblr post a couple weeks ago that kind of explained all the things that one could do to get engaged and take action on the issue, like who to call, who to email, when the hearing was going to be, when people were getting together to testify. And then beyond that, just getting kept informed and up to date with like Planned Parenthood and NARAL and all those organizations, Texas Democrats, like Tanine was saying. So it's been really important. And it's not just me following those outlets, but me following those outlets and then spreading it to my friends.
Right.
Who then spread it to their friends.
Right. Tell me a little bit about the concerns you might have also about diminishing access to contraception and other forms of health care in the state.
Well, I live in Austin, so it's not going to be something that significantly impacts me. I also have health care, so it's not going to be something that significantly impacts me directly. However, I was born in Austin, but I was raised in Laredo, which is a border town, and that's one of the areas where it would take them at least 2.5 hours and lots of gas money to just get up to San Antonio. And that's not even the worst case scenario. Mary Gonzalez was talking about her district, which is in El Paso, and would cause her constituents to drive like 600 miles one way to get to a clinic. And she also drew attention during the debate to the fact that like, it's not just going to be for that abortion, but it's also going to be for that forced sonogram. So
Right.
It's effectively 4 600-mile trips for people in El Paso.
Right.
For me, like I said, I'm privileged, and because I live here in Austin, I'm able to go to the Capitol and take advantage of that fact. And because I'm employed by PCCC, I have a little bit of leeway and I'm able to do that. Some people aren't able to do it because of their job, and some people won't be able to travel to clinics because of their job, because of having to work so many hours, because having to try and save up all that money.
Right. So this all sounds like a guaranteed equation for keeping people who are already poor, low income, even poorer, and making them struggle even harder to exercise a basic right to decide whether, when, and how many children to have. It's really a tragedy. Laura, thank you so much for participating with us today and for letting me try out my first time as a host. We're going to go on now to our next guest, Melissa.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for sharing your story. We are excited to go back to the state of Ohio right now with Stephanie Kite, the CEO of Planned Parenthood Advocates in Ohio. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hey, Stephanie.
Hi, Stephanie, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We
Yes,
can.
loud and clear.
All right.
Stephanie, this is Jody Jacobson from RH Reality Check. How are you?
I'm frustrated today, Jody.
Why? Tell us why.
Well, of course, Ohio passed a budget yesterday that included some terrible amendments for women's health, including amendments that will severely restrict women's access to basic and essential health care that they need to take care of themselves.
So from the perspective of a provider organization, Stephanie, tell us a little bit about how this would affect the actual women that you see on a day-to-day basis. What do they struggle with? What do you provide them with? And what would they lose if Governor Kasich does not veto these items in the budget?
Women will lose the ability to make their own health care choices and, most importantly, to pick their own provider. They will, the funding that comes to Planned Parenthood to help women who don't have access to health insurance allows women to pick a provider like Planned Parenthood or other family planning providers in the state of Ohio, where they can go and get their essential reproductive health care, a well woman exam, a cancer screening, their annual breast cancer screening. Services like that will be eliminated for women.
And who are the women most affected by this? Give us a sense of, throughout the state, where the greatest effects of these policies would be felt.
Well, for Planned Parenthood, the greatest effect will be in northern Ohio, but there are family planning providers throughout Ohio, mostly in rural areas or underserved urban areas, that will lose the funding for their family planning programs for women. So, of course, it will most dramatically affect women who are poor, who don't have access to health insurance to get their health care needs met.
And what justification are legislators offering for these moves?
Well, I struggle to answer the question there because it seems the only thing I've heard in terms of the funding is they somehow believe that by taking the designated family planning funds away from designated family planning providers and giving them to other types of providers, that somehow different women will be seen. So, of course, we won't see no additional women will get health care, but they somehow think about moving it will give different women access. It's completely ludicrous logic.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because in this budget is the rationale that they're going to take money away from established, respected, experienced providers and give it to who? Crisis pregnancy centers, other places? Where is it going?
What they're saying they'll give it to, so they've created a tiered system. And on the top tier and the number one tier are organizations like a county health department, who may or may not have any expertise in women's health care, nor they might not have any capacity to see women. But that's who they'll give the money to, or a private OB-GYN who might want to see women under this program. Anyone who is not a family planning specific provider gets the money first. So if your program is a private, not-for-profit doing family planning, you are on the bottom of the tier to receive designated family planning money.
So this would be like, for example, taking funding that would help people who don't have access to cancer treatment and giving it to, what, orthopedic doctors? I mean, this is sort of like taking it away from the primary experienced provider and giving it to centers that have no experience.
Yes, a generalist, for example. And there's two problems with that. The problem of they don't have the experience that a specialist like a family planning provider would have, nor do they necessarily have the capacity. So as a woman, you may need to get in you might have found a lump in your breast and you want to get in immediately for an exam, but they don't have time because their patient load is too big, and now we suddenly shifted all these patients. So it's a twofold damaging prioritizing for women because they have neither the expertise nor the access.
So what's Planned Parenthood and its allies doing? We spoke earlier to Senator Nina Turner, and of course she spoke a little bit to this, but I'm getting questions myself that I can't answer via email and Twitter. What can people do both in Ohio and across the country? And what are you guys doing? Give us a sense of the protests you're holding, the things that you're doing that people can support in by any means they can.
Right. As a healthcare provider, our first concern is for the women who are going to be affected by these new laws. So we are working very hard right now to figure out how we're going to find ways to serve these women. So that's our number one action in expanding our services or finding other avenues. But also on the political side, we are definitely raising our voices to Governor Kasich. And if people want to take action, what they need to do is let Governor Kasich know that he needs to stand up for women's health. And you can do that by going to @GovernorKasich using the hashtag veto for women.
Great. That's great. Veto for women. Hashtag veto for women. Okay.
You got it.
And so like in Texas, are you all planning protests? What's happening down there? Give us a picture of what's happening.
Right. Well, a lot of it's happening on social media. A lot of it's happening with phone calls. We only have a couple days, so every community rally around the state that's happening, every already organized one, whether it's the Pride Rally in Cleveland tomorrow or the ComFest in Columbus, we're organizing and activating around these already established events, getting people to use that hashtag to let Governor Kasich know he needs to line item veto it. We only have between now and Sunday to do that. So it's that kind of activity that we really need everyone to rally around and just let the governor know that this is going to show up when he runs for re-election next year, that women won't forget if he doesn't stand up for us.
Can you say something as to how they justify the so-called pro-life stance with taking access to family planning, cancer screening. How does Governor Kasich or any of the legislators that are pushing for this justify this in public?
Well, and haven't you put your finger on the irony of the whole thing, that they're taking away the very money that would reduce the need for abortion in Ohio? That they have no interest in joining us in actually reducing the need for abortion. They just want to shame and humiliate women and make it more difficult and dangerous for them to access the health care. The only justification they have, to tell you the truth, is they're looking to put Planned Parenthood out of business as a way that they think that would somehow reduce the amount of abortions in Ohio.
But
that's the only.
I wonder, do they really believe that, or do they just not care? Because I can't even imagine, knowing what we know about the fact that whether or not abortion is accessible, women will have abortions. It's the difference between safe and unsafe abortions. Do they really believe this, or do they just think that after the political tempest dies down, that the individual women will be invisible, the women harmed by this? I can't grasp this.
Well, I think that's the hardest thing in this whole situation to grasp, is the depth of their not caring about women. It is profound how much they do not care about the consequences of women not getting health care. You and I know the consequences. We're women. We know how important it is to take care of our health. We work in this world. They do not care about women.
I work on these issues every day. And I am every day struck in my gut by these things. I cannot comprehend them. I really can't.
It's truly a tragedy, the fact that they don't care for women. And it is a call to action to every woman who has sat quietly while the rest of us has done battle. We need every woman in America, in Ohio, to stand up right now and say, enough is enough. Our health care matters. It matters to us. It matters to our families. And you need to get out of my health care decisions and go back to taking care of the economy.
Right. Isn't it ironic that the most personal private decisions are what, that legislators and governors, politicians who are the most vocal about so-called freedoms, freedom from regulation, freedom from oversight, are seeking to literally control the bodies of individual women, literally control them, literally tell them lies, force them to go through medical procedures that are unnecessary, eliminate their health care. It's truly, again, I'm really, I don't even know what to say anymore.
Well, and the fact that they're willing to subjugate the entire political process to this one issue. Everything around the country is stopping. All the positive work we need to be doing on jobs and economy is stopping because they are so desperate to interfere with our personal private medical decisions.
Right.
It really is one of the great tragedies of our American political system today.
Right, absolutely. I mean, this is just again, it is a tragedy because not only that, economically it hurts women, it hurts families. We really have, I agree with you that, I think one of the most important points as we close out this interview to reiterate, and there are many points that you made, Stephanie, is that it's time for all women to stand up. Many of us have been quiet. Many of us have felt ashamed, but it's only in the collective that we shed that shame and stigma and fight against it. And it really is a call to action to every single woman in this country to stand up right now. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us, Stephanie, and really good luck in Ohio, and let us know what we can do.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye.
Hi, so thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, Jody. This was a lot of fun doing... doing our brand new special reports are the new work that we're doing here at We Act Radio, so that way we have the ability to do rapid response to the issues that are impacting our community. Here in DC, we have been horribly impacted by the war on women because the Republicans in Congress think that DC is their way to experiment. Since in DC we don't have any elected members of Congress, any senators, we don't have autonomy over our budget. So I think it was last year that they took away the right for DC money to be able to be used to help low-income women have access to reproductive health care and access to abortions. And so we need to keep fighting. We don't have the ability to fight because we don't have any power, any role. So that's why the warrant for us here in DC to cover this issue is critical, and to have the backs of women around the country. We are a little bit short on time, so we are going to have to close out for today, but this is not going to be the only time that we are covering the GOP assault on women. We hopefully be back soon. We loved having Jody here in studio, so I hope we can get Jody back here doing more reports for us and talking. She's fantastic. Jody, close it out.
Well, thank you so much, Melissa. And I just want to say that it struck a chord with me what you just said. No autonomy over budgets or bodies. Mm-hmm. And that's what the reality is. This is what these people are trying to do. No autonomy.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're listening to We Act Radio, WPWC 1480 AM. Visit us online at weactradio.com.